Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva bandhuscha sakha tvameva Tvameva vedyat ravinam Tvameva Tvameva sarvam mama deva deva Tvameva sarvam mama deva deva. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we are still in our 9th chapter, although coming toward the end. So which verse are we on?
Today we're on 136.
Chapter 9, verse 136, and Puneet is online tonight.
One 136.
Yes, 136.
Okay. Upasanam nati pakkam iha yasya paratrasaha marane brahmaloke va tattvam vijnaya muchyate. If one fails to perfect the practice of meditation in this life, one does so either at the time of death or in the region of Brahma. Then, obtaining direct knowledge of the reality, one is liberated.
So this is the teaching we have in Gita and many other scriptures. So if you do not perfect your knowledge and have steady wisdom at the time of death of a yogi, it happens when you die. So we haven't really talked about this much. The subtle body has a grosser aspect and a subtler aspect. That grosser aspect, when a person's physical body dies, that grosser aspect of the mind falls away too. So for many yogis, then they see the reality, they are liberated at the time of death. If there's still more vasana, then here he says they go to Brahmaloka. Unlike the Christians, where purgatory, your away station before heaven, is negative, in Hinduism, the way station before liberation is positive. And then at the dissolution of the age, you are liberated. Whether this happens or not, all I know, this is what the scriptures say. What I know for sure is I do not know. Gita says, actually, you're born again into a family of yogis where you're reunited with your knowledge and then very quickly attain liberation. So these are things that the scriptures put forward. Let's see what else Vidyaranya says.
Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajyante keva varam tam tame vaiti yachitta tena yati ti shastratah. The Gita says that a man attains that which he thinks of at the time of death. Wherever his mind is fixed, there he goes, says the Shruti too.
So I'm going to push back a bit on this because it's not, oh my gosh, I got to make sure I'm chanting my mantra at the time of death. I always think of the example of the person who's led a good life and is approaching death, and he's ill and he's in the hospital. He's just about ready to die. And a nurse comes in with a voluptuous bosom and he goes, "Ooh." Is he ruined? No. What actually happens, and this I know from the reports of people who've had near death experiences, in a sense, have gone to the other side and come back. When you leave the body, like you frequently are in a place physically above the body, looking down at it. You might see the doctors with the paddles on your chest, or the people pulling you out of the swimming pool where you almost drowned. And then many of them say you go down a tunnel and you're met by people. Sometimes it's your loved ones, sometimes it's other ethereal beings. And then there's a light, and then there's a judgment. Our whole life passes in front of us. And what I have been told by people who have had these experiences, the things we think are important, my money, my house, my title, my prestige, my car, completely unimportant. What's really important are those small acts of kindness which we've done for other people. Now, what scriptures that have transitional scriptures like the Tibetan Book of the Dead, then you go beyond that light. But the point is, it is our whole life that builds those final thoughts, our values, what's important. So we don't have to worry, oh, I don't want to take anesthetic even though I've got cancer. I might die unconscious. Don't worry about it. Swamiji was under general anesthetic when he died. They took him in for open heart surgery. He's fine. So yes, the thoughts we have in our minds at the moment of death make a difference, but we build that quality of thought through a lifetime. So one should not read this scripture and use it as a way to become frightened. Any thoughts on this? If you watch the movie Gandhi, when Gandhi is shot at the end, in the movie it says, oh God. And that's not really what happened. When Gandhiji was shot, he began to chant his mantra. Ram, Ram. So he died with the name of the Lord on his lips. Pope John Paul II, when he was in the apostolic palace and very near death, He asked people to come and read the Psalms to him, to turn his mind towards God as he understood God. It's not an uncommon practice. Any thoughts, questions? Next verse.
Antya pratyayo nunam bhavi janma tatha sati nirguna pratyayopi syat sagunopasane yatha. So the future life of a man is determined by the nature of his thoughts at the time of death. Then, as a devotee of the personal God is absorbed in him, so a meditator on the attributeless Brahman is absorbed in it and obtains liberation.
Yes, pretty straightforward. So according to Vidyaranya, whatever your particular idea of the divine is, to that you go. What I know for sure is I do not know. This is simply what the scriptures say. And again, it varies from scripture to scripture, culture to culture. I think each one of us can come up with our own idea of that. But all the traditions in some way say, in this very body, in this very life, to the best of your ability, fix your mind on God as you understand God. If it be God with a form, go for it. If it be Atmaramana, the reveling in your own self-nature. Yeah. Next verse. Oh, before we go on, my particular viewpoint, all the various scriptures who talk about the dispensation of the soul after death, personally, I think they're about meditation. I think they're about samadhi. I think the death about which they're talking is the death of the personal sense of self. And when we leave the body, what it means is when we break that identification. When we study the Panchavayu, the 5 subtle airs of in prana, pranayama, udana, which governs thinking, also is what I call the ejection button. It's the prana that blows the subtle body out of the physical body at the time of death. But it is also the prana that leaves, that where we leave the body in meditation. Or as Socrates said, what else is philosophy? Deepest meaning of that is the love of wisdom. Jnana. Than practicing dying. That's what he said. All right, next verse.
Nitya nirguna rupam tat nama matrena giyatam arthato moksha evesha samvadi brahma vanmataha. Brahman is called eternal and attributeless, but in fact, it is of the nature of liberation itself, just as leading error is an error in name only, for it leads to the desired object.
So we've been debating or talking about this whole idea of a leading error, which is a falsehood to which we cling, which leads us to the truth. So all this past teaching about the dispensation of the transmigrating soul at the time of death, let's frame it this way. Does it make any difference if in your dream you have the idea, I'm the dreamer, the dream is about ready to end, and I'm going to merge into the waker? Or you just wake up? Truth is, nothing in the dream touches. This is the knowledge that Vedanta teaches. All this stuff about the dispensation of the transmigrating soul at the time of death is all history of an unreal being. I thought, don't get caught up. If it interests you, read it. But do not get caught up in the notion, oh, I can't wait till I die. Then I won't have to deal with this suffering world anymore. Oh, that means you've got some aversions. You've got some definite aversions to this world. All right, next verse.
तत्सामर्थ्याज्जायते धीर्मूला विद्या निर्विता का अविमुक्तो पासनेन तारक ब्रह्म बुद्धिवत्. As by meditation on the personal God, knowledge of the nature of Ishvara arises, so by meditation on the attributeless Brahman, knowledge of its nature arises and destroys the ignorance, which is the root of rebirth.
So if you meditate on Ishvara or the personal God, you will become aware of its attributes, that God is love, that God's in charge, that it's a beneficent universe, that it's all going to work out, that if you surrender to that personal God, you're going to be taken care of. Use that personal God as your shelter, your sharanam. But meditating on the self yields a different result. The dissolution of the personal sense and the dissolution of a personal God and the dissolution of the world. And only aham, I remains. Next verse.
Sokamo nishkama iti hyashariro niridrayah abhayam hiti muktatvam tapaniye phalam shrutam. A meditator becomes Brahman who is unattached, desireless, free from body and organs, and fearless. Thus, the Tapaniya Upanishad speaks of liberation as a result of meditation on the attributeless Brahman.
Yes, you don't really become Brahman. You realize you were always that. Language falls short. Self is not born. It doesn't get reincarnated. It isn't afflicted by punya or papam. Hebrew scripture says, I am the same yesterday, today, and forever. That is true about you. If you want perhaps the most brilliant group of meditations on your self nature, I suggest you review the 7th mantra in the Mandukya Upanishad. Doesn't get any better or any clearer than that. It's beautiful, beautiful language. So clear. Next verse.
उपासनस्य सामर्थ्यात् विद्योत्पत्तिर्भवेत् ततः नान्यपन्था इति ह्येत्यच् शास्त्रं नैव विरुध्यते. By the strength of meditation on the attributeless Brahman, knowledge arises. So the scriptural verse, verily there is no other path to liberation except knowledge, does not conflict with this.
So we have what we call jnana abhyasa, the practice of knowledge. And that is in the world of Maya. And it essentially boils down to 2 practices: the via negativa, I am not this, not this, not this. And then these assertive verses, vast and empty like the sky, of the nature of the self, beginningless, changeless. That's negative again. Can't get positive language frequently. The untalkable, but yourself. A vast, shoreless ocean of being. Fundamentally different from the ego sense, yet the substratum of it. And when the mind stops, merges into the self, and practice and knowledge ceases. Next verse.
निष्कामोपासनान् मुक्ति तापनीये समीरिता ब्रह्मलोकसकामस्य शब्यै प्रश्ने समीरितः. So the Tapaniya Upanishad points out that liberation comes from desireless meditation. The Prashna Upanishad also says that by meditation with desire, one enters into the region of Brahma.
So, even our mumukshutva, our burning desire for liberation, in the end, goes. The mind is stupefied, it just stops. It's indescribable, avyupadesha. But for those who have the swad, the taste, the Brahmananda rasa swad, the taste of the juice of the bliss of Brahma, it's very real, very clear. Next verse.
Sa upaste trina brahmaloke saniyate sa etasmat jivadhya na param purushmikshate. The Prashna Upanishad says that he who meditates with desires on the three-lettered Om is taken to the region of Brahma. There he comes to know the attributeless Brahman who is beyond Hiranyagarbha, the sum totals of souls, and becomes free.
So again, here the idea is if you meditate on Om as it's put forward in Prajna, we went through that. And again, we need to look at the deeper meaning of Om, which again is laid out most clearly in the Agama Prakarana, the scripture portion of Mandukya Upanishad. AUM in silence, waking, dream, deep sleep states, to be able to identify them. See that they're fundamentally just mind states. But what is the awareness, the consciousness, the Chidakash, in which all mind states occur? And get out of the mind. Stay identified with the Turiya, the fourth, which is beyond all mind states. So, next verse.
Apratikadhikarane tatkur tatkru tatkraturnyaya iritah brahmaloka phalam tasmat sakamyasyeti varnatam. The Brahma Sutras in the Apratikadhikarana says that he who desires the region of Brahma and meditates with desires on the attributeless Brahman attains that region.
I'm not sure what he means by that, whether he's equating Brahmalok with knowledge of the self or as some super sensuous realm. I do not know. But whatever you think the highest good is, that's where you tend to end up. And again, I would take it out of having all sorts of hopes and things about life after death. Concentrate on liberation here. When the body drops away, we'll see what the adventure is. It's interesting. I was supposed to go hear the Verdi Requiem on Friday, and the concert was canceled. And David sent me a wonderful recording of the Atlanta Symphony with the Robert Shaw Chorale and stuff. And David, I don't know if you had paid attention to the fact that Verdi repeats the phrase liberame de morte eterna at the end. Did you notice that, David? Is he there?
He's there, but his screen is blank.
Okay, he may have gone to sleep. Anyway, but many musicologists interpret this that it doesn't end with requiem aeternam, eternal rest. It's Verdi has doubts. Oh Lord, liberate me from eternal death. Liberate me, please. He has hope, but he has doubt. So many of us, if we are rooted in belief, this is our mind state. It's our mind state. I hope this stuff is true. But what yoga says is seek liberation right here, right now. Don't worry about the hereafter. It'll all take care of itself. Next verse.
Nirgunopasti samartha tatra tattvam vekshate punaravartate nayam kalpante cha vimuchyate. Such a worshipper, by virtue of his meditation on the attributeless Brahman, enters the world of Brahma and there obtains direct knowledge of Brahman. He is not born again, he gets ultimate release at the end of the 4 yugas.
Yes. So again, he's quoting what the scriptures say, that this person who is very close to liberation, if he doesn't achieve it this lifetime, he goes to Brahmaloka, and at the end of the 4 yugas, attains liberation. My thought, wait. Strive hard for liberation right here. And that's a hopeful teaching for those for whom they have a concern for it. Next verse.
Pranavopasyata prayo nirguna eva vedagaha kvachit sagunata yukta pranavopasanasya hi. In the Vedas, meditation on the holy syllable Om in most places means meditation on the attributeless Brahman, though in some places it means meditation of Brahman with attributes.
So I don't know why he's bringing it up. If we, again, go to Mandukya Upanishad, the first mantra says, Om, the word, Pranava, Omkara, is all this, Sarvamidam, meaning Saguna Brahman, the phenomenal world. And then it says, that which is beyond all this is also Om, meaning Nirguna Brahman, Brahman without qualities. This is the fundamental declaration of the Upanishads. Nirguna Brahman is always experienced as I, never as an object, the self. Saguna Brahman Sarvam Idam. This whole phenomenal world is nothing but Brahman. Both are just Om. This is the fundamental declaration of the scriptures. Next verse.
Para Brahma Rupa Omkara Upavarnitaha Pipaladena Munina Satyakamaya Pritchate. Pipalada, being asked by his pupil Satyakama, says that Om means Brahman both with and without attributes.
And that's a quote from Yoga Vasishta. We have this dude, Pipalada, who's one of the characters in one of the stories in Yoga Vasishta. And here Vidyaranya is quoting Yoga Vasishta that both this world and the beyond are nothing but Om. Ma, and silence. Various permutations of mind, all contained within consciousness. Again, this becomes easy to understand if you go look at your dream. All the characters in the dream, your dream body, your dream thoughts and feelings are all nothing but your own mind appearing as the world of the dream. This comes about in the same way. Next verse.
एतदालम्बनं ज्ञात्वा यो यदिच्छति तस्य तत् इति प्रोक्तं यमेनापि पृच्छते नचिकेतसे. Yama, too, questioned by his pupil Nachiketa, replies that he who meditates on Om, knowing it as the attributeless Brahman, obtains the fulfillment of his desires.
Yes. So these are characters that we see in Kathopanishad. So young little Nachiketa, who's about 8 years old, goes to the hall of death and learns the question, the doubt that he has. He asks Lord Death, when a man dies, is he or isn't he? And then the whole rest of the Upanishad is the answer to that question. And again, what Lord Death ultimately says is, the self in you is birthless, changeless, and deathless. You do not get born, you do not die. All this world is, as it were, like a long and very vivid dream. Next verse.
Iha vavam marane chasya brahmaloke'thava bhavet brahma sakshat kriti samyag upasinasya nirganam. He who meditates properly on the attributeless Brahman gets direct knowledge of Brahman either in this life or at the time of death or in the world of Brahma.
So, as Krishna says in Gita, my devotee is never destroyed. Keep on keeping on. And don't worry about the outcome. Have faith, even if your knowledge is only indirect this lifetime, or you have tenuous knowledge. At times you know the nature of yourself, but you forget. The essence of what Vidyaranya is saying is, don't worry. Your liberation is assured. You won't have to come back as a lizard and start all over again from the bottom. Next verse.
Artho yamatma gitayam api spashta mudiritaha vicharaksham ma atmanum upasititi santatam. The Atma Gita also clearly says that those who cannot practice discrimination should always meditate on the self.
So meditate on your idea of the self if you cannot practice discrimination and know that it's you is the essence. Again, what we call jnana abhyasa, the practice of knowledge. So those of us who've been doing Vivekachudamani, there are many, many wonderful sections where Shankara just uses the most beautiful poetry as meditation verses on the self. Jnana abhyasa, the practice of knowledge. Taking the time to remember who you are. Next verse.
साक्षात् कर्तुमशक्तोऽपि चिन्तयेन् मा शङ्कितः कालेनानुभवारूढो भवेयं फलितो ध्रुवम्. The self, as it says, even if direct knowledge of me does not seem to be possible, a man should still meditate on the self. In the course of time, he doubtlessly realizes the self and is freed.
Yes. So, what do we do in meditation? Depends on where we are in our journey. The basic rule of thumb that I suggest: the grosser the mind, the more meditative supports. The subtler the mind, let the meditative supports fall away. If your mind is gross and you're thickly ego identified and you've got lots of issues, chant the name of the Lord, use a mantra, walking meditation maybe, go to kirtan, spiritual campfire songs. If your mind is more subtle, you can do something like the Goenka body scan, or be with your breath. Or in Gita, Krishna says, Japa is the king of yogas. It's the one I found most valuable. Silent repetition of a mantra. In the beginning, you might take on, okay, I'm going to chant my mantra 1,008 times. Use a mala to count. Later on, let go of the structure, the technology of it. Just use the mantra as a place to park your mind. And when thoughts and feelings arise, bring it back to your mantra. Now, in Mandukya, when we're suggested to meditate on Om, we meditate on all four quarters. Uma and silence. So with any mantra, let your repetitions be surrounded with some silence. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. As the mind gets slower, the mantra slows down. Om. Even a mantra like that becomes too loud, too noisy. Maybe all you could do is just oh yeah. I think I'm gonna make a salad for dinner tonight. You know, am I gonna put in carrots? Yeah, I think I have some carrots. Oh, Namah Shivaya, oh, Namah Shivaya. Is my half an hour up yet? Oh, should I look at my watch? Oh, Namah Shivaya. If you can just dwell in silence, thoughts arise. Seeing the fundamental unreality of the mind. Now listen carefully. If you have extended moments of complete silence in your 30, 40 minutes, an hour of meditation, you're doing very. And then you might come to the state where the mind is just absorbed in the cell. And what thoughts go by, they're like so far away. They're there, but you just don't even pay any attention. The way to learn to meditate is to practice meditation. That, it's like riding a bicycle. You can read all the books about it, watch all the videos about how to balance your two-wheeled bicycle. But ultimately, you just have to get on the bike and go. Riding a bike will teach you how to ride a bike. Meditation itself will teach you to meditate. In the beginning, it's work. It's sometimes referred to as tapas, abhyasa, practice. But in time, when the mind develops some facility, having quiet time to spend with the Lord is an incredible joy. The mind prefers the familiar. Frequently, it prefers the familiar to the good. If what's familiar is the mind extroverting into the world, then we have to retrain the mind to come home, to make self-avoidance familiar. And in time, the mind will prefer it. Then you may have these great blessings. You're going through your day, and all of a sudden, just your mind just is absorbed within. No, you don't even know why. It's just a little touch of the rays. Oh, Jai, Jai. Then the mind returns and you go about your business. You ride the bus. I don't suggest you do that while you're driving, though. Any thoughts on these processes, any of these techniques? Also be mindful that one of the things that happens in meditation is the word we get in again in the Gaudapada Karika is kashaya, which is the unloading of the unconscious. Sometimes meditation is a lot of just being present to agitation, to fear, to discomfort, pain, lust. You want to do anything but just sit there. vasanas, the samskaras, unloading out of the unconscious. And you've heard me say this so many times, just don't do something, sit there. Anybody else have any thoughts that they might want to share on this? Do we still have you online? Everybody's so quiet.
Yeah, we're here.
Next verse.
यथा गाधनि धीर्लब्धाओ नोपाय खननं विना मल्लाभेऽपि तथा स्वात्म चिन्तां मुक्त्वा न चापरः. To reach treasures deeply hidden in the earth, there is nothing for it but to dig. So to have direct knowledge of me, the self, there is no other means than meditation on one's self.
Yes. Pretty straightforward. Shankara uses almost the exact same image.
It's a quote from Viveka Chudamani, 60.
That's funny. That's funny. So that's what we need to do. That's what we need to do. Next verse.
Deho palamapakritya buddhikuddala kapunah atva manobhuvam bhuyo grihni yatman nidhim pushpuman. A man should remove the stones of body consciousness from the field of the mind, and then by repeatedly digging with the pickaxe, the intellect, he can get the hidden treasure of the self.
Yes. So the stones that are there are kleshas, are doshas, are attachments, are identifications. We need to remove them through mature viveka and mature vairagya. And again, probably the most useful thing to meditate on is to see the relationship between kama, craving, and dukkha, suffering. Yoga says they are the same thing. Ego says, I'm disturbed because I'm not getting what I want. Yoga says, I'm disturbed because I'm craving, attached. Buddha, let it go. There I am with a want on again. So when I can clearly see that kama and dukkha are the same thing, I begin to develop the desire to be free from attachment through insight, not out of some moral position. Next verse.
Anubhuter bhavepi brahmasmityeva chintyatam upyasat prapyate dhyanat nityaptam brahma kim punah. Even if there is no realization, think I am Brahman. Through meditation, a man achieves even other things like the deities. Why not Brahman who is ever achieved?
Yes. So here he says, give up your concern with lower deities. Don't go racing off to the astrologer. Don't go to the crystal shop. All that sort of stuff. No. Meditate on the fact that I am Brahman. And again, I go back to good old Shankara. Viveka Vairagya Cha. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. Brahman alone is real. Phenomenal world is Mithya. Illusion. Give up attachment to the phenomenal world. Why? It's anitya. It's impermanent. It is shunyata. The names and forms are fundamentally void. If it's pleasure giving or misery producing, it's only what my mind is attributing to it. No personal sense of self is real. I am Atma Brahma. Myself is Brahma. I feel like a person, I'm deluded. Drop it. Remember who you are. Don't try to resolve the struggle of ego. Drop the struggler. All of these are various forms of this jnana abhyasa. Ways in which we can drop the mind over and over and over. Next verse.
Anatma buddhi shaithilyam phalam dhyanadite dine pashyan api na chedhyayet koparo smat pashurvada. If a man who is convinced by his experience that meditation practiced day by day destroys the idea that the not self is the self, nevertheless becomes idle and neglects meditation, what difference, tell us, is there between him and a brute?
Yes. So you can read all the scriptures in the world. You can watch lots of YouTube on non-dual knowledge. But if when you're finished with your reading and you're finished with your YouTube, you go out in the world and you think you are the body. And you think you are the personal sense of self, Jiva Bhava. You're just like any other ignorant person. Nisargadatta Maharaj used to say that his only real instruction from his guru told him, you are Brahman, meditate on that. That was basically the only instruction he had. He did not spend lots and lots of time reading scriptures. He just meditated on this. I'm not the bodies, the conditionings. I'm Brahman. Next verse.
Dehabhimanam vidvasya dhyanatmanam pashyan martyo mrito bhutva hyanya brahma samashnute. Destroying his idea that the body is the self through meditation, a man sees the secondless self, becomes immortal, and realizes Brahman in this body itself.
Yes. The secondless, the non-dual, the one without a second. So again, the root identification is the body. Keep discriminating. I am not the body, I'm the knower of the body. I'm not a feeling. I'm the knower of the feelings. I'm not a thought. I'm the knower of thoughts. I'm not any thought of self. I'm ever Sakshi, the witness. Over and over and over. And if someone compliments you and praises you, you don't have bad manners. You graciously say thank you and drop it and don't believe it. Oh, Jim, you're such a good person. Thank you. No, I'm not a person. I am nothing. What a jerk, Jim. How could you have done that? Sorry I offended you. Drop it. I am Brahman. No personal sense of self is real. Over and over. Any thoughts on the practice? Next verse.
ध्यानादीपमिमं सम्यक् परामृश्यति यो नरः मुक्तसंशय एवायं ध्यायाति ब्रह्म सन्ततम्. The meditator who studies this chapter, called the lamp of meditation, is freed from all his doubts and meditates constantly on Brahman.
Oh, so I think we've come to the end of it. So he's summing up. If you really meditate on this chapter, it will clear up your doubts about meditation, doubts about the nature of yourself. Are there more, or is this the end of the chapter?
This is the end.
Okay, well, we'll quit here then. Okay, so we'll start next week on the next chapter, and what's the title of it?
The lamp of the theater.
The lamp of the theater. This is a very famous chapter. It's quoted frequently by many sages who have come after Vidyaranya. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om.